What's going on, family? How y'all doing today? Once again, I am back at it again. I am Cash, back at it, talking about some NBA. You already know what it is, man. Stay tuned. All right, so if you guys are just tapping in, I'm talking about NBA once again. I probably talk about basketball more than any other sport on my channel. But I am going to be talking about some football because there are some topics that are coming up, that I do want to talk about. But, it was a very big weekend pertaining to NBA. We had some highlights, we had some finishes, and like the thumbnail says, things are ramping up. Yes, things are ramping up. Before I get into anything, drop a like, subscribe, and also hit that bell, that notification button, so you guys can tap into later topics and debates that I will be having on my platform. And secondly, right, I want to let you guys know, I was streaming the fight, the Jake Paul and Tommy Fury fight yesterday, but I got hit with a copyright infringement. I know, not really surprising. I should have expected it, but I was at least able to stream the whole fight for you guys. If you guys were able to tap in, but I got suspended for a day, so yeah, it is what it is, man. But it was all worth it, as long as I was able to get the fight to you guys. But back to the drawing board, right? So Damian Lillard dropped 71 points yesterday. Yes, Damian Lillard had matched the season high points scored for the season. The only other person that dropped 70 this season was Donovan Mitchell. And you know what? You know what really makes this whole thing special? You really know what makes this special is the fact that Damian Lillard is a 6'2" point guard and dropped 72. Remember, the most points ever scored was Wilt Chamberlain. If you look at the most points scored, there's only one guard, right? Besides Devin Booker and Damian Lillard to have as many points in a single game. And that was Kobe Bryant with 81. Other than that, everybody else is a big man. I know there's one other name, one other guy that I believe he had like 78 points, but we're going to tap into that later. But just the fact that yesterday Damian Lillard had dropped 71 points, he was efficient from the field and did his thing. You can quite literally say Damian Lillard is having the best individual career thus far, on the Portland Trailblazers. And unfortunately, this is really sad to see because Damian Lillard is an all-star talent. Actually, I would even say that Damian Lillard is more than an all-star talent. He's a superstar talented player. This guy's been doing this for a very, very long time, putting up numbers, showing, what value that he brings to Portland, just playing at a high level on a consistent basis. And you can see that he's damn near doing it by himself, right? I mean, the Portland Trailblazers do have some good pieces. They do have some players, that you can look down the line and say, there's potential with this particular player. But the Trailblazers as a whole and how they look as a team, it's just simply not enough for them to go far when it comes to the Western Conference playoffs, right? The Western Conference, right? So here's the thing, man. Here's my ordeal with the whole Damian Lillard situation because he is a fantastic player. Damian Lillard is a great player, but he has absolutely no future with the Trailblazers. And honestly, that's really sad for me to say because I genuinely like Damian Lillard. I want Damian Lillard to go through that experience to be able to contend for an NBA championship. But you know what? He's strung out on staying with the Portland Trailblazers. He's fixated on trying to bring a ring to Portland, but it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. Let's just say it plain and simple. Damian Lillard is not going to get a championship in Portland. But you know what? That is fine. As long as superstars come to that realization, I think I'm okay with it. I don't think that should be something that I would hold over Damian Lillard's head. If he's content with it, I mean, hey, he's getting $250 million. He's going to have generational wealth, for decades to come for his family, the Lillard family, whatever family he has. All right. He is going to be secure, right? That's more important, right? But fact of the matter is, when we're talking about basketball, Damian Lillard just doesn't seem to be having the career that he wanted when it comes to at least certain accolades and accomplishments. I'm gonna break that down. I'm gonna break that down for you guys. But by the way, you know what? Before I even tune in, let me drop this link in the comment section so you guys can tap in and also join the debate, talk, whatever. If you guys have anything to say, hey, you guys can chime in at any given point. Right? Now, I'm not one for the whole super team era. I think it's kind of played out. I'm not for a bunch of superstars going to one team. I mean, we've seen what happened with certain teams, like Lakers being one example, the Brooklyn Nets being the biggest example, and also the biggest disappointment. But I could see Damian Lillard just going to another team and just being someone competitive, right? It could either be the Miami Heat. He could have went to the Suns, which they could have traded for Chris Paul and a boatload of picks. Damian Lillard could have literally went anywhere if he had demanded so. But you know what? Damian Lillard is one of the few players in the NBA that has honor, integrity, and is willing to see things through. But despite all that, let's go over some of the things that Damian Lillard has done thus far, which has brought him to this point, and why, his career just won't go the way people would want it to be. But at the end of the day, he's still having a fantastic career, right? So here is Damian Lillard's numbers just over the past 12 games. Look at that. So Damian Lillard in the past 12 games have been putting up phenomenal freaking numbers. 71 points, 39 points, 40 points, 38 points, 33 points, 28 points, 40 points, 29 points, 42, 30, 60. It is outrageous to see what this guy is. He is going off. He just might be quite literally, right, playing like the best point guard this year. Now, I know there's Luka. I know there's Steph Curry. Steph Curry's out for a little bit. Luka obviously has better all-around numbers, but Damian is just as effective on the court as anybody else. Quite frankly, you can say that he's on that level like Luka Doncic when it comes to how effective he is on the court. But unfortunately, it doesn't translate into the team success that he wants, right? Because even with all these numbers, the Trailblazers still sit, right, as, let me see, they still sit at where? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the seating. Oh man, I should have had that written down. Let me find it. Yeah, but besides that though, man. So going back to this game though, I mean, I understand it was against the Houston Rockets, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Quite frankly, they probably are the worst defensive team in the league, right? But by the end of the first half, Damian Lillard in that 71-point game had 41 points just by halftime, right? Let me say that again. Damian Lillard had 41 points by halftime. So he basically had a whole game's worth of points by the half, right? I didn't even need to break that down for you, but I just wanted to emphasize how incredible he's been playing, thus far, right? The 71 points was the 8th most, right, in NBA history. He currently leads the league with 40 points, 12, right? That's 8 most. Sorry, that's 8 of those 12 40-point games were just in the past 2 months, right? Let me say that again. He leads the NBA with 12 40-point games, and 8 of those were just in the past 2 months, right? And then also in that game, he had 12 3-pointers. He made 12 3-pointers. That is just second to Klay Thompson's record in 13 three-pointers made in a single game. So if he had just made one more, he would have tied Klay Thompson's record for the most threes in NBA history in a single game, right? So my thing about it is with Damian Lillard, my thing here is, right, and let me show you this also. So with that 71-point performance tonight or yesterday, Damian Lillard now has the third most 60-plus point games in NBA history with 5. Wilt Chamberlain has 32 60-point games. Kobe Bryant has 6 60-point games. And Damian Lillard is 3 with 5 60-point games. There's no doubt about it that Damian Lillard could potentially get another 60-point game down the line. I don't know about this season, but he's definitely going to tie Kobe Bryant's personal record for 6 60-point games in his NBA career, right? And then let me even show you this graphic right here. Most points in a single game since 1995. Kobe Bryant, 81 points. Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard, 71 points. Both of those brothers did just this season. And then Devin Booker, who did it a couple years ago, had 70 points in his loss against the Boston Celtics. So all of these guys are guards. Right? You know, Kobe Bryant, we know that he would take a volume of shots. He would take a lot of shots, you know, as opposed to Donovan Mitchell and Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, in that 60-point outing that he had, that was the most efficient 60-point game that anybody has ever had. Mind you, we're talking about guys like Wilt Chamberlain, you know, who's a scoring phenomenon, and yet Damian Lillard, who is a 6'2" guard, right, was still able to have a more efficient 60-point game, right? So, and then Damian Lillard also has more 60-point games than Steph Curry, LeBron James, Shaq, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Tim Duncan, Bill Russell, and Kevin Durant combined, right? Keyword, combined. Right, so he is playing phenomenal, right? It's crazy to see that Damian Lillard is still putting up crazy numbers, right? But it's just sad to see that it's not translating, you know, to his career. He's not getting the output that he should receive, right? Man, like and subscribe if you guys are tuning in. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Damian Lillard should stay on the Portland Trail Blazers? Or do you guys think he should just thug it out, stay with the Trailblazers, and then finish his career off in Portland? You know, either or, I'm not mad at it, but I would still want Damian Lillard to continue his continue his career in a position to be able to contend for a title, right? And I'm not saying for him to take the easy way out. I'm not saying for Damian Lillard to go to the easiest team or to go to a team which already is contending for a team. I say go to a team like Miami. You know, why not go from Portland to Miami? And that would be a huge upgrade for Miami because they would get a huge upgrade at the point guard position with having Damian Lillard there, because Miami Heat have been struggling, right, when it comes to offense this season. They just had a 4-game losing streak. They can use somebody like Damian Lillard, right? But this is what sums up Damian Lillard's career thus far. And this is why I say it's extremely disappointing. Right, because since he started, right, he was Rookie of the Year. I remember when he won Rookie of the Year. Since then, he had obviously 0 MVPs, 0 scoring titles, 0 assist titles, 0 conference finals championships, because he did go to the conference finals and lost to the Golden State Warriors. He has 0 finals appearances, and I'm not gonna acknowledge the nonsense with the whole beard fiasco, right? But then here's how it's going now. Look at it. So he won a gold. He has an Olympic gold medalist. He's a 7-time All-Star, first-time All-NBA, right? 4-time All-NBA second team, 1-time All-NBA third team. We already acknowledged the Rookie of the Year, NBA Rookie of the Year first team, 1-time NBA Teammate of the Year, And then he was he was acknowledged as the NBA 75th anniversary team. And then he recently just won the NBA. He just recently won the NBA 3-point contest, right? So to be quite frank, man, it's just I would want Damian Lillard to have better accolades than this. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is still very, very good. There's no doubt about it that Damian Lillard would be a Hall of Fame, a first ballot Hall at that. But I don't want to hear this conversation in the future where it's like, yeah, Damian Lillard is great, but he don't got a ring. I don't want him to be in the same conversation as Charles Barkley, or other stars where we point out the fact that they haven't won. I know I can be sometimes I can be one of those people, but I like to keep that conversation consistent when it comes to them currently playing, right? But nonetheless, if a player is still playing at a phenomenal level, that has to go acknowledged. That can't be overseen. We have to acknowledge what we're seeing right here. And Damian Lillard is just downright playing like one of the best point guards in the game. One of the best point guards ever. You can even say with numbers like this, he just might be the best point guard in the league. That's obviously, disputable. You can make that argument. You can argue against it. But I've just shown you so much information that can support that fact, right? And this is going back to even what I said earlier, with Damian Lillard leading the league in 40-point games, 12 this season. 8 of those have been in the last 2 months, right? So my thing about it is, where does Damian Lillard go from here? People, I've seen articles saying that Damian Lillard his patience might be wearing thin, but he's maintained the consistent stance and staying with the Portland Trail Blazers. But honestly, if you're the Portland Trail Blazers, right, I understand where the sentiment is. If the guy wants to stay, then by all means, pay him what you owe him, and try to put talent around him. But to put it simply, right, the Portland Trail Blazers just can't get talent around Damian Lillard, right? They traded away CJ McCollum. He's now on the New Orleans Pelicans, and he's been to the playoffs with the New Orleans Pelicans and playing well at that. I mean, the Pelicans aren't playing well, but CJ McCollum, is still playing at a considerable level, which he can contribute to a team that has playoff aspirations, right? LaMarcus Aldridge, when he was Rookie of the Year, when he was a young player, Damian Lillard was playing alongside LaMarcus Aldridge, and he left Portland to go to the San Antonio Spurs. So it's just not like Portland just can't seem to keep stars. They can't seem to sign stars. They're not active in free agency, right? They weren't active last year in free agency, right? So why would you want to put yourself in this position? If you're Portland, I mean, I can understand why you would want to keep your superstar. You got to add in the fact that Damian Lillard is a box office player. He puts up phenomenal numbers. He attracts an audience and gives people a reason to go to Trailblazers games. But you could take this opportunity to rebuild, after Damian Lillard leaves, right? You can trade him for a boatload of picks. You can probably get some nice pieces back, and then rebuild from there. And then try to find some structure within the team after that, right? You can even still try to keep Chauncey Billups and help him mold the younger guys that you would get in return for Damian Lillard. Right, but I just don't see any future with Damian Lillard staying with the Portland Trail Blazers. I don't see how it goes up from here. And honestly, it's going to be a disappointing story moving forward, because we already know how this conversation is going to lead. Go into we're going to look at Damian Lillard's career, and we're just going to acknowledge, like, yo, he's just not going to win a title. He's not going to win important, and I don't want that for Damian Lillard. I don't think that's something that Damian Lillard should have attached to his career. And I'm just being fair. I'm just being fair here. So if I was the Portland Trailblazers GM, I would be like, look, Dame, I understand, you want to stay here with us, and I acknowledge that. I love that in you. But I want to see you be in a position to win. Legitimately win. Not just win games, not just win regular season games, but to actually contend, to actually go far in the playoffs, to play with other considerable talent that you would deem as your peers, that you can play alongside with and trust those guys. So you don't have to drop 71 points just to beat the Houston Rockets, right? The Houston Rockets. So it is what it is, man. It's a sad thing to see, but like I said, man, it is what it is. It is what it is, man. So now going to another topic, right? Another situation yesterday that went down. The Clippers went against the Nuggets once again, and this game went into overtime. This was a really good game to watch. I believe this was the last game Sunday night, and you had two teams that could potentially face off in the playoffs. Now, I always like talking about these games because when it comes down to playoff matchups, this is always a game. These are always the games I like to pay attention to because these teams could potentially face each other down the line, right? And we know the history with the Nuggets. Going back to that bubble when the Clippers were up 3-1 on the Nuggets, and they had came back on their ass. Since then, the Nuggets have been 12-2 against the Clippers. So the Nuggets have essentially owned the Clippers, right? Owned the Clippers. And so it's a funny situation because it's like, with the Clippers, are like, I know they're a good team. I know that they can contend, but they've just been like a stock market. They've been a volatile stock. They can't seem to get things going, and it's so disappointing. But you know what? The Clippers have maintained consistency with looking farther in the future, prioritizing the playoffs instead of the regular season. So we're going to have to see the result of what the Clippers invested in the playoffs. Right now, they're just playing. They're just playing to stay in the playoffs. That's the way I look at it. And so that's why they're 30, 32, and 30, I believe. Right. So Jokic once again had a MVP-like performance. He had 40 points, 17 boards, and 10 assists. Another MVP-like performance. I mean, it's. I mean, how can you really say anything against that? Jokic deserves all the praise when it pertains to the MVP, right? It's more than likely he's going to get his third straight MVP. But you know what? I have so much other time to talk about that. I have so much other videos talking about Jokic winning MVP for the third straight time. But you know what? I'm not going to get into that. The only parts I want to get into is this game in particular because it was a great game. It was a great game to watch, right? The Clippers, for the most part, they were out-rebounded, right? 50-38. The Nuggets had 11 offensive rebounds. They were also out. The Nuggets also had more assists than the Clippers. And then, not to mention though, too, the Nuggets had more points in the paint, right? And they had an 18-point lead over the Clippers. The Clippers had to come back on the Nuggets for them to even go to overtime, right? And if you guys wanted to hear about Russell Westbrook, Russell Westbrook played well yesterday too. He had 17 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, right? He was 60% from the field, 50% from 3, and also had 5 steals in that game. But he didn't play. But he also was benched in the fourth quarter, so he didn't really have any effect late in the fourth quarter or even in overtime, right? But we've seen this story before. We've been down this road before, right? But then, the Nuggets just went all out. The Nuggets offensively, their stars clutched up. Besides Jokic having 40 points in that game, Murray had 21 points. He wasn't that crazy efficient, but he had 21 points and 12 assists. Michael Porter Jr. showed out, had 29 points, shot well the entire night. He was 12 for 18, right? He was 4 for 8 from threes. And not to mention, he made that clutch three when the Nuggets were down 117 to 118 during that play when Kawhi Leonard and Jamal Murray were fighting over the ball. And then Michael Porter Jr. was wide open at the top of the three-point line and just knocked it down, right? And then so the thing about it is, and why Jokic is building up, a better argument every time with this whole MVP argument is because whenever he averages or whenever he gets a triple-double, Jokic is 23-0 when the Nuggets have is 23-0. The Nuggets are 23-0 when Jokic has a triple-double, right? So Nuggets, Jokic and the Nuggets, right? Jokic is a very big part in this team's success, right? This team, he's the motor. He's the facilitator. He's the big man. He does it all, right? This is why the Nuggets are the number one team in the Western Conference, because he plays a huge role in their success. He facilitates, he scores, he's efficient. I know I can say my 2 cents. I know more times than not, I'm speaking against Jokic winning MVP and what he's been doing, but I don't try to take away, what he's doing. I just try to pinpoint things to my colleague saying that this guy isn't perfect. This guy's trying to already say that he's the best player in the league, and I don't feel that way. I still don't feel that way, but he's playing like the best player in the league. He's playing like one of the best players in the league, and that has to be acknowledged, right? So at least for the Nuggets, they're keeping their consistency. They're rolling on into the playoffs with the same drive that they have in the first half of the season, and it doesn't look like they're going to be slowing down anytime soon. I still have some things, I still have concerns when it comes to the Nuggets. But you know what? I'm going to save that for further down the line. But I've also spoken up about things like that in the past. But with that being said, they still deserve praise for this moment because they went into overtime and Nikola Jokic did exactly the things that I've said that he needed to do, right? Was to be aggressive, right? Go after it. Take advantage of certain size differences. Even if you miss a shot, get the board, put it back up. Right? He scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. Right? That's the sort of aggression. That's the sort of selfishness that sometimes that I want to see from Nikola Jokic. Because I'm not one of those guys who's just going to say that he's the best player in the league when you're not being selfish at times. You're not being aggressive. And you guys know what I mean. We've seen it in the best of players. The best players in the world, the best NBA players in the world, when it comes down to crunch time, when it comes down to crunch minutes, you have to be aggressive. We want to see you be selfish, right? We don't want to see you pass the ball. I mean, I understand making the best play at the right time, but sometimes you got to put the ball in the best player. You got to put the ball in the hands of your best player and let him work, right? I don't think a lot of people would argue against that. And that's my argument with Jokic. I just want him to be aggressive. I want him to be the best player on the court when it's necessary, right? And that's where I'm coming from, right? Now to the Clippers, right? Because the Clippers, I mean, Kawhi still played well yesterday. He played well in the fourth quarter. He's a big reason why they were in the game in the first place. right? The Clippers had made some necessary trades. They traded for Eric Gordon. They picked up Russell Westbrook. I'm not going to say that this, people are already trying to say since they signed Westbrook, I think they're 1-3, I believe, or 1-2. It's not on Westbrook. Westbrook he's played all right. But Eric Gordon yesterday, in particular, played 25 minutes and had 0 points. 0 points. Right? And so my whole thing with the Clippers is just that they don't have real consistency. Right? Their starting five has fluctuated so many times. Paul George is can be in and out of games. Kawhi Leonard, right, throughout the season has been on this whole load management fiasco, right? We've heard this way too many times. We've heard this 1,000 times with Kawhi Leonard, being load managed. This is damn near like a 3-4 year process with Kawhi Leonard. And then I understand, man, he's been hurt. He gets injured. You don't want the guy to get hurt in an 82-game season, because we understand that the playoffs is just more important. We have to factor that in. I understand, because I agree. I would rather see Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs than I would want to see him in an 82-game season. I understand it. But at the end of the day, we want to see these guys play against the best. My argument is, at least if you're gonna load manage, don't do it in nationally broadcasted games. Don't do it against teams that you could potentially face in the playoffs. Don't do it against teams that have, that's in the playoff seeding, have winning records. If you're gonna load manage, do it conveniently. Do it so that the fans can still enjoy the game. Don't take it away from the game. And I'm speaking from experience here. When I was in the military and I was stationed in Seattle, I flew to San Diego for training, right? And I wanted to see the Clippers at the time against the Milwaukee Bucks. And I drove all the way from San Diego to LA, that first time in LA, specifically to see Kawhi Leonard play. And I found out the morning of that Kawhi Leonard was not going to be playing that game. He played, and the thing about it was, he played the previous game, the game yesterday, and then missed the nationally broadcasted game, which was against the Milwaukee Bucks. And that game on Tuesday was against the Utah Jazz. Like, who cares? You could have missed the Jazz game, but then play for the national broadcasted game. Clippers and Bucks don't play that often. So why miss a game like that? Why would the league set up games on nationally broadcasted games? Give us in advance. So I have to, because I paid like $200 for them tickets. I was damn near courtside. They are Clippers tickets. So $200, you can get you a pretty good seat at a Clippers game for $200. But that's just one of my points. Right? But we know it's still a lot of basketball left when it comes down to the second half of the season. There's still a lot of good basketball left to be played. It's not like the Clippers are in any danger of missing the playoffs, so they're still in a good position to win. And it's not like I see them having a bad drop off, right? Even if they fell to the play-in, they're gonna make the playoffs, right? It really is just gonna come down to seeding at this point. And if the Clippers fall down lower, they're just going to have a harder battle, right? So that's at least my position with, that's just my position with, with the Clippers and just that game in general, right? So now we're going to switch it up to the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson wows NBA fans during a 32-point showing in Warriors win versus the Timberwolves, baby, right? So the Timberwolves, or let's just say this, the Warriors are staying afloat. This is definitely not one of the Warriors' best seasons, right? This is probably, it's not as bad as the time they missed the playoffs, I believe the year after the bubble, when Steph Curry, I think, was playing by himself and he was putting up MVP-like numbers. but they were still struggling because Steph Curry can miss games every once in a while. He still has like them paper mache legs. But Draymond Green has a lingering knee injury. Andrew Wiggins has been out for a couple weeks. Steph Curry is yet to be is still being evaluated and might not see playing time until next week. So really, they're limited to just Klay Thompson and the young guys that they've invested into their roster. But thus far, the Warriors still happen to stay afloat. They're still in playoff contention, right? They're still staying in there, right? In the past two games, Klay Thompson has scored 74 points in those 2 games, right? He's and then yesterday in particular, he had 32 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, shot 12 for 23 in field goals, made 6 3-pointers. And then in the last 8 games, Klay Thompson has averaged 28.6 points, 6.5 3-pointers, and had a 3-point percentage of 47.3 from the field. That's giving them a 500 record in those past 8 games. But that just goes to show, man, Klay Thompson ain't washed just yet. Yes, Klay Thompson ain't washed just yet. People were saying that in the beginning. Even last year, people were trying to overlook Klay. But the reason why I wasn't trying to overlook Klay, because for one, he's a freaking catch and shoot player. I didn't see him losing his shot anytime soon. You don't just lose that overnight. I mean, he had a knee injury, not a shoulder injury, not a hand injury, a wrist injury. So it's not. I didn't see him to be able to lose his shot. I mean, I understand. You still got to get your footing right. Shooting comes down from the from the lower body and up. But Klay Thompson is still doing his thing. He's helping this team stay afloat, and they still have Jordan Poole, who they just paid this year. I mean, and he can be somewhat inconsistent, but for the most part, he's still an effective player on the court, and he has championship DNA in him, man. He's a big part in why this Warriors team was successful in the first place. So, the Warriors, we know they're having a very challenging season. For some odd reason, they can't seem to defend on the road. They can defend at home, but they can't defend on the road, which is very odd to me, in my opinion. But honestly, man, this is just what it is for the Warriors, at least right now. So the Warriors just need to get their players back. Bottom line, the Warriors just need to get their players back, and once they get their players back, they'll be back in the running. As far as like defending on the road, and having, I believe they're 10. They're 10 and 20 in road games. So if they can just be a little bit more aggressive on the road, start to get their players back, because even though now they've lost, they've lost Steph Curry for a little bit now, but even losing Andrew Wiggins was a big part of their game plan. Andrew Wiggins is a guy that can be the primary defender against some of the best players in the league. He was able to put the clamps on Jason Tatum in the finals, right? He was able to force Jason Tatum to force bad shots, have him turn over the ball, and make mistakes, right? So once this Warriors team, we can't fully evaluate this team just yet. I mean, like I keep saying, there's still a lot of basketball yet to be played. But once we start to see things unravel here a little bit, players start to come back, then we can have a full assessment. But the Warriors are still staying afloat. That's my headline for the Warriors. It's going to be good to see, at least by next week, how this team is going to be looking. Right, I don't see them falling out of the play-in tournament, but we're gonna see how far they go. Now, next up is, right, y'all already know what it is. Lakers overcome a 27-point deficit to defeat the Mavericks, complete the biggest comeback in the NBA this season. Yes, that is right. Lakers come back on a 27-point deficit on the Mavs. Mavs can't seem to defend anybody, man. They're in trouble. And I said this in the prior podcast, man. The Mavericks, I just don't see them as going as far as people think. You know, even though Kyrie Irving, puts out a lot on the offensive side of the ball, right? Not so much on the defensive side. And we know Kyrie Irving can have some bad games, right? He can have some bad games every once in a while. It's not too often, but he does, right? So here's the thing, man. The teams that have trailed more than 27 points per game, right? This season, they are 138 to 0. So let me rephrase that so it doesn't sound confusing. Teams that are up by 27 points on a team are 138 and 0. So after yesterday, that became 138 and 1, with that one being the Lakers versus the Mavericks. Right? Since Luka and Kyrie have teamed up together, they have been 1-3, right? And their only win has come against the San Antonio Spurs, who currently are on a 16-game losing streak. That is nothing to be bragging about, right? Kyrie Irving yesterday, like I said, he had a very inconsistent night. He shot 3 for 12. He was also 1 for 8 from 3-pointers and had 1 assist, right? And then when we go into the game, the Mavs led 48-21 with 7 minutes left in the second quarter, right? So last time we had seen the Lakers have this big of a comeback was actually in 2002. And guess what? They trailed by 30 in that game. And guess what team they were going against? The Dallas Mavericks. There's no doubt, though, that was probably a Kobe Bryant-led team in 2002. But that's way down the line. I'm not really going to talk about that, right? But here are some key points to take away from this game. First off, the Lakers shot 17% in that game, right? So they were putrid from the three-point line. But what brought them back into this game? First off, Anthony freaking Davis. Anthony Davis finally played. Well, I'm not gonna say finally because he had some highlights this season. I mean, he came back from an injury, so we hadn't seen a 30-point game since he's gotten back. But he had 30 points. He had 30 points, 15 boards. Right. LeBron James had 26 points. All right. So the duo, played relatively well. LeBron James fell down on an ankle, and he had somewhat of an ankle injury. He was limping off. I'm going to show that a little bit later. But the duo kind of played to, their championship fashion, which we had seen before. So remember what I keep saying. This team will only go as far as Anthony Davis takes them. That's bottom line. The Lakers will only go as far as Anthony Davis takes them. It's not on LeBron's shoulders anymore. LeBron will always be there to play up to his standard. I mean, yeah, he'll have some nights where he's not playing that well. We know that he hasn't shot that well from the three this season also. But nonetheless, he's still shooting 50% from the field. He's still averaging 25 plus points per game, right? And he's 38 in his 20th season, still doing it, still contributing, still having a big contribution to team success, right? And then so even with the Lakers shooting as poorly as they did, right? What brought them back was defending, rebounds, and taking better shots, going to the rim and playing their game, right? In the first quarter, the Lakers only scored 16 points, and they were outscored 0-10. Well, they started off 0-10, right? With the Mavs going on a run, and then they were out, and then they outscored the Mavs 64-47 in the second half, right? And we got to shout out Jared Vanderbilt, young player in Jared Vanderbilt, right? He came up. He deserves a lot of recognition for this game also because he was the primary defender against Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic didn't play. He was firing off in the first half. In the second half, right, he kept Luka at 12 points in the second half, a guy who's been leading the league in scoring for a better part of the year. He's kept them to 12 points in the second half. That's the sort of defense that we need to see from these young guys, right? That's the reason why they brought in guys like Rui Hachimura, who's out for a little bit, Mo Bamba, and Jared Vanderbilt. And then also Anthony Davis, he's a beast. He can ultimately do anything he really wants to if he puts his mind to it, which is why he catches so much criticism, because we want to see Anthony Davis play at the standard that we know he can play at, right? So Jared Vanderbilt, besides him being the primary defender on Luka Doncic and holding him to 12 points in the second half, he had 15 points and 17 rebounds, right? So besides Anthony Davis having 15 boards, Jared Vanderbilt had 17 boards, right? So Lakers, once again, they are 4-0 since the trades that they have made. And so they're trending upward. They understand what's at stake. They know that they're trying to go for the 6th seed, right? Which would take them out of the play-in. I know that they're trying to avoid the play-in. And so we're going to see, man. But the Lakers, they've put themselves in a good position to win. Rob Pelinka deserves a lot of credit for how this team looks right now. So we're going to see where it goes from here, man. We're going to see where it goes from here. Now, as far as the Mavericks is concerned, they are in trouble. They are in trouble. And you know what? I've stated this in the past, man. People have saying, oh, get Luka some help. Get Luka some help. Get Luka some help. I've said this before. Luka has had help. Y'all gassing it the F up. Luka has had help. Stop the cap. Right? He had Dinwiddie. He had Tim Hardaway. He had defensive help, in some aspects, not great defensive help, but he had a team. The team went to the Western Conference Finals last year. He had Kristaps Porzingis. Those are players. If I'm contending, why wouldn't you want those players on your team? I would love to have Spencer Dinwiddie come off the bench for my team. I would love to have Kristaps Porzingis on my team. All right? And then now you have Kyrie Irving, right? So that's a star. That's a star. You're playing alongside a star. Fact of the matter is, man, and I do understand. I don't want to just simply put everything on Luka, because I understand some of this comes, coaching comes into this also. But Luka has to learn to play alongside another star. He can't be the same ball dominant guy in the past. But he can't also cater to Kyrie Irving's game. Kyrie Irving needs to defer more so to Luka than Luka deferring to Kyrie Irving. It needs to be the other way around. This is Luka Doncic's team. So that needs to maintain consistency. Luka Doncic still needs to lead this team, but he also needs to be able to set up Kyrie, play off ball, and then get some rhythm going. That's what's more important. Rhythm, not just I'm taking a shot, you're taking a shot. You know what? You're going off, so you do your thing. There needs to be some type of chemistry here. Now, I understand this was on short notice. This was very high risk, high reward. But it's looking like high risk, low reward. Right? So that's that, man. I'm going to key off on that later. I'm going to key off on that later, man. But yeah, man. So we've had a really good weekend when it comes to basketball. Trae Young had a game winner. The Hawks hired Quinn Snyder as their new head coach, and there's also been some headlines with Trae Young potentially being traded in the offseason. Now, I don't know how legitimate that is. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how real that is likely to be. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how that turns out. Honestly, if I'm the Hawks, I can see why they would trade him. I mean, he has a lot of trade value. I mean, for people that's saying, why would you trade your superstar? Why would you trade your best player? Things like that. Sometimes, hey, if you don't see no legitimate future with this star, you have to be able to let him loose, let him fly. Like AB said, fly like an eagle, fly. Right? So, and Trae Young, even though he has the averages, but his percentages this year have not been great. They have not been great. Let's keep it stacked. Trae Young he's shooting at the low 40s. His 3-point percentage is in the 30s. That's just not what it needs to be, especially from a star player. And if you're playing that well, remember the Hawks made aggressive moves to acquire DeJounte Murray, right? Like they have a legitimate roster. Like you got Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Clint Capella, Jason Collins. Like these aren't bad players. They should be doing better than what they have been doing. They should be playing better. Legitimately, I genuinely feel that way. But why are they at this level? Why are they struggling the way that they are? I don't understand it. I don't. So that's that, right? Another thing is, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with this, but the NBA and the NBPA are near an agreement for a new CBA deal. Apparently, things have been going in the right direction. But let's tap into the article and see what they have to say. Right. So the NBA and the NBA players, the National Basketball Players Association, are progressing in talks on reaching a new collective bargaining agreement. Multiple sources with knowledge of both sides of the discussion tell The Athletic. The sides have extended their mutual opt-out deadline during the process and currently have a March 31st deadline to reach an agreement on a new CBA. Have one party opt out or once again extend the process. Sources say that there has been significant progress made in recent weeks on key issues, and it's given the hope a deal is within grasp in the coming weeks. The NBPA has informed the league office that it is their intention and goal to complete a deal in March. Sources, we want to finish this deal soon and certainly want this up before March 31st deadline. One high-ranking source involved in the players' negotiation who was granted anonymity so they could speak freely told The Athletic. It's close. We need to dot the I's and cross the T's. The NBA and BPA are in of a typical negotiation with the sides extending the deadline multiple times. However, it's been clear the parties led by Commissioner Adam Silver and Executive Director Tamika are motivated to complete a deal and are working thoroughly to find an agreement. Amongst the most critical issues, the NBA and NBPA are negotiating new luxury tax tiers and rates to increase the lower tier and make it more viable for teams to spend money into the tax. As salaries continue to increase, increasing the lower tax bracket tier allows tax tiers to match up with the money being spent. Currently, for between 0 and 4,900,000. So 4,999,999 over the cap. Sorry, that was kind of a tongue twister for me. The tax rate is $1.50 for every dollar over the cap. For teams between $5 million and I'm just gonna say $9 million over the cap, the tax rate is $1.75 over the cap. The NBA and the NBPA are attempting to where the tax bracket tiers should be set while maintaining the punitive state of the upper tax levels. Since everything about these dividing lines is completely up for negotiation in the new CBA, the two sides can redo them to make a small into the tax more manageable and then step up the charges for those franchises willing to dive first into the tax. Increasing each of the thresholds that make up the luxury tax, often called bands, that lead to steeper tax payments also makes sense with a league that has much higher revenues and thus a much higher salary cap than they did in previous agreements. The NBA currently has a 7-year CBA that expires after the 2023 to 2024 season. For the NBA, the issues of load management and resting among players and teams are core concerns, as well as the Diamond Sports regional sports networks and its economic model being able to sustain the broadcasting of 16 of the league's teams. The sides are discussing several other issues. One, lowering the age eligibility for the NBA draft to 18 years old, which would effectively end the one-and-done system in college basketball. The NBA and NBPA have momentum on agreement to terms that would lower the age to 18 for the draft, but sources say the union is pushing for conditions that would facilitate veteran players provide and orientation to the high schoolers entering the league. The players' union wants to maintain the presence of veteran players and not allow newcomers to replace them, especially in the cases of teams with high school prospects who enter the NBA. Another thing, increasing the contract extension limits, which would add flexibility and significant effects incredibly quickly. Under the current CBA, teams and players can only increase the player's salary by 120% in the first new year of their extension, unless the player qualifies as a designated player / rookie or makes well below the league's average salary, shifting that 120% to potentially 140 to 150%, as the sides have discussed, according to sources, opens the door a lot more for players who sign contracts eventually become below market deals to get enough of a raise to commit ahead of time. A group that potentially includes OG Anunoby, Demastis Sanobis, Lauri Markkanen over the next few seasons, smoothing out the process by which salary cap rises instead of allowing the cap to spike, which occurred in 2016 and led several overpriced contracts. Right, so man, that was a lot to read, but you know what? Things like this, man, we don't know how this thing can go. We don't know the direction of the CBA. We've seen blackouts, we've seen strikeouts, we've seen players go on strike, and then that led to the season being delayed or being canceled. Right, and so my biggest takeaway, as a fan, right, is to kind of get a better understanding, or at least have a grasp on this load management thing. I know I've spoken about it in the past, but at least, there needs to be some type of, some type of regulation towards this. I'm not saying, I don't think, I don't think their money should be taken away from them. Honestly, I wouldn't sit here and say something like that. I think that's downright evil for me to say. And honestly, that's not, I wouldn't say that on my platform. But if anything, they should, if anything, why not have sick days? Why not give NBA players sick days? And then you have it like this, right? They can't call out sick on nationally broadcasted games. And you can't, well, I can't say that because there's no way you can predict that. But I would definitely say you can't call out sick on nationally broadcasted games. And then you put in your time of leave, before the season starts, so at least the fans would know who's going to be playing those games. Now, there could be some limitation. I would say probably give them like maybe 5, 10. I would say 5 to 10 games, 5 to 10 leave days. So Kyrie Irving, hey, bro, I'm looking out for you, bro. You get your vacation. But that's really the biggest thing that I'm concerned at as a fan. I just want to see great teams be able to compete against each other, and I think every NBA fan can attest to that, right? So that is it. That is my summary for today. At least that pertains to NBA. I don't know if I'm going to do NFL in a bit. I do want to stream some have a game stream here pretty soon. So if you guys are tapping in, please like and subscribe to Cash Sports. Hit that bell, that notification button. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I love you guys. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Peace.